गोपीजनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरवनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरवनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरवनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस से भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की ISKCON फाउंडर आचार्य BBT फाउंडर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से गो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वसुधि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मायापुर नवदीप धाम की जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगामय की यमुनामय की भक्ति देवी की तुलसी महारानी की समवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Gaura. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Hare Krishna. We're reading this morning from Canto 5, Chapter 10. Maharaj Rogan meets Jad Bharat, text 14. It's in prose, so we'll just read it. Shri Shuka Uvacha Etavad Anubada Paribhashaya Pratyudirya Munivara Upashamashila Uparatanatmya Nimitta Upabhogena Karmarabdham Vyapnayan Rajayanam Api Tatovaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shukdev Goswami said, O Maharaj Parikshit, when King Raghuvan chastised the exalted devotee Jad Bharat with harsh words, that peaceful saintly person tolerated it all and replied properly. Nescience is due to the bodily conception, and Jad Bharat was not affected by this false conception. Out of his natural humility, he never considered himself a great devotee, and he agreed to suffer the results of his past karma like an ordinary man. He thought that by carrying the palanquin, he was destroying the reactions of his past misdeeds. Thinking in this way, he began to carry the palanquin as before. Purport. An exalted devotee of the Lord never thinks that he is a Paramhamsa or a liberated person. He always remains a humble servant of the Lord. In all reverse conditions, he agrees to suffer the results of his past life. He never accuses the Lord of putting him into a distressed condition. These are the signs of an exalted devotee. Tattenu kampam susamikshamaanaha. When suffering reversed conditions, the devotee always considers that the reverse conditions are the Lord's concessions. He is never angry with his master. He is always satisfied with the position his master offers. In any case, he continues performing his duty in devotional service. Such a person is guaranteed promotion back home, back to Godhead. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.8, Tattenu kampam susamikshmano bhunjana evatmakritam vipakam ridvag vapubir vidadhan namaste jivetayo muktipade sadhaya bhak. My dear Lord, one who constantly waits for your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him, and who goes on suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने गौरत्वशे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, Hare Krishna. Seeking the blessings of all the Vaishnavas this morning, for this morning Srimad Bhagavatam class, especially His Grace Radhesham Prabhu. So, we find here Shukdev Goswami is describing the reaction of Jad Bharat to King Rahuguna's chastisement. And as the verse mentions, Nimitta upabhogena karma rabdham. So he considered the nimitta, the instrument of his suffering, that is, experiencing the harsh, sarcastic words of the king. So he didn't consider the king as the instrument. The conditioned tendency usually is that we tend to blame the person. But here, Jad Bharat is clearly able to see that he's simply suffering the reactions of his own karma. We would like to discuss on this topic, perceiving mercy as mercy. We would like to discuss it under 5 headings. First, what is mercy? Second, the right response to this mercy. Third, why we fail to have the right response. Fourth, misuse of this philosophy. And fifth, the solution or how to have the right perception towards mercy. In the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 4th verse purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, if the infinite reveals himself, then it is possible to understand the nature of the infinite by the grace of the infinite. So, to understand that inconceivable, infinite nature of the infinite, one requires the grace of the infinite. But the grace of the Supreme Lord is also inconceivably infinite. And so therefore, to understand that grace of the Supreme Lord sometimes becomes very challenging. We would like to begin with the pastime from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Jagannath Puri, there was a very confidential secretary, a servant of Advaita Acharya, named Kamalakant Vishwas. So, one day, Kamalakant Vishwas, he sent a very confidential note to Maharaj Prataprudra. Nobody knew about it. Of course, the Lord knew. But nobody else knew. And he was thinking that he's sending a confidential note, a confidential message. But as we find it so often in this world, things always don't remain confidential. And even 500 years back, the confidential note didn't remain confidential. Of course, it was the Lord's arrangements. And so, he sent it through someone to the king, but somewhere it slipped out and it reached the hands of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The note said that Advaita Acharya is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Mahaprabhu is reading it and he sees this first line and he says, yes, that's correct. Advaita Acharya is definitely incarnation of Supreme Lord. The next line said that Advaita Acharya has incurred a debt of 300 rupees, which I'm trying to liquidate. When Mahaprabhu saw that, he said, this is not correct. And therefore, I must punish him to teach him a lesson. So he called Govinda, his personal secretary, and issued an order. From today on, tell this Baulia Kamalkant Vishwas to never come here. That's it. So, when Kamalkant Vishwas heard this order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was very unhappy. But when Advaita Prabhu heard this, he was very happy. He was very pleased. And he called Kamalkant Vishwas and he said, you are so greatly fortunate to have received the favor of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Many years before, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was considering me as senior and he was respecting me. And therefore, I expounded on the Yoga Vasishta philosophy as supreme. And at that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu apparently showed me disrespect. Just like he punished Mukunda. Even Sachimata, she was punished by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This was her great fortune. In this way, Advaita Acharya pacified Kamalkant Vishwas. And then Advaita Acharya went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he said, my dear lords, you have given such mercy, such great favor to Kamalkant Vishwas, which you have never bestowed upon me. What is my great offense that I have not been bestowed such mercy? Advaita Acharya was referring to the punishment which Mahaprabhu gave Advaita Acharya, beating him, but he was saying that such punishment was not given to me. I was never banished from seeing you. Therefore, you have shown great favor to Kamalkant Vishwas. When Mahaprabhu heard this, he was greatly satisfied and he called Kamalkant Vishwas back. Then Advaita Acharya said, why did you call this man back and allowed him to see you? This man has cheated me in two ways. What are those two ways? We don't know. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami said, only both of them understood each other's minds. Who can understand? Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called Kamalakanta Vishwas and he said, you are acting like a Bauliya. Bauliya is referring to the Upper Sampradaya. So he's saying, you don't know what to do. You don't know things in the right perspective. Why are you acting in this way? You are unnecessarily invading into the privacy of Advaita Acharya and destroying, damaging his religious principles. Advaita Acharya, he is my spiritual master. And a spiritual master is not supposed to take favors from a king or a wealthy person, because by doing so, his mind becomes polluted. When the mind becomes polluted, one cannot remember Krishna. And when one cannot remember Krishna, the purpose of human life will be spoilt. Then the people in general, then he will become unpopular with the people in general. And that's how he will lose his religiosity and fame. And thus, his religious principles will be destroyed. Advaita Acharya was very pleased to hear these instructions of the Lord, and all the devotees gathered there understood that the Lord's instructions were meant for everyone. I'm going to tell two more pastimes before coming to some conclusions. A well-known pastime of Srila Prabhupada when he was in Montreal, 1968. His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj was a new devotee at that time and was very much attracted to Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And he invited an Indian Bengali, Mr. Mukherjee, who appeared to be pious, to come and meet Srila Prabhupada, thinking that Srila Prabhupada's teachings would influence him and he would become a devotee. So, Mr. Mukherjee came to meet Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, it was a darshan time. Srila Prabhupada spoke something, and after that, Mr. Mukherjee was challenging Srila Prabhupada, challenging the philosophy in so many ways. And Gopal Krishna Maharaj was thinking, I didn't expect this man to do this. He's a Bengali. I thought he would be favorable to Srila Prabhupada, who's apparently from Bengal. And so he was very upset. And he wanted to chastise Mr. Mukherjee. But Srila Prabhupada said, it's okay. Maybe I did something in my previous life. I'm getting the reaction. Third pastime. Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada would rise early every morning, as usual, for his translations. And early one morning, Srila Prabhupada sends Brahmanand Prabhu, his secretary, go and call Guru Kripa Swami. Brahmanand Prabhu goes, knocks on the door of Guru Kripa Maharaj, who was obviously fast asleep. And somehow he gets up, opens the door, and he sees Brahmanand Prabhu in front of him. And Brahmanand Prabhu says, Prabhupada is calling. Guru Kripa Maharaj says, what? At this time? For what? He says, I don't know. He's calling. All right. So Guru Kripa Maharaj sort of dresses himself up and goes to meet Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada, so he offers his obeisances, sits in front of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada looks at him and asks him, what were you doing? Guru Kripa Maharaj, he says, what? He thinks, what do you think I could be doing at this time? So he says, obviously I was sleeping, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada shot the next question, why were you sleeping? This was too mind-boggling for him. So he blurted out, Srila Prabhupada, I was tired and so I was taking rest. Prabhupada shot out the next response, but I am not taking rest. So he said, but Srila Prabhupada, you are a Mahatma. And Prabhupada shot back, why don't you become a Mahatma? I personally heard this pastime from Guru Kripa Prabhu in Vrindavan. It's also there in the Prabhupada memories. And he gives his understanding of the pastime. And he says that at that point of time, Guru Kripa Maharaj and his team of devotees were doing huge fund collection for the Krishna Balram temple in Vrindavan. In fact, even now, even today, you go to Krishna Balram temple, right at the entrance, you can see a huge plaque saying that we thank Guru Kripa Swami for donation of so many dollars to the Krishna Balram temple. You can see it. So they were doing huge collection. So Guru Kripa Maharaj says that most probably I was becoming proud and therefore Srila Prabhupada was teaching me. As we're saying, the Lord's mercy comes in inconceivably different ways. The Lord's mercy could come in the form of the threefold miseries of material existence, Adhyatmik, Adibhautik, and Adidevik. As His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj explains that, and also Sridhar Swami in his commentary to the Tatyanukampam verse, he says that the reactions which a devotee faces may appear like ordinary karmic reactions, but they are actually orchestrated by the Supreme Lord Himself. And so Giriraj Maharaj explains that the Lord takes those karmic reactions and uses them for the best benefit of the devotee. And so it is not karma given or maya given, but it is directly given by Krishna for the best benefit of the devotee. So ultimately, whatever the Lord does, the Lord is like a loving father, and whatever the Lord does is the Lord's mercy. And what is the greatest mercy of the Lord on the living entities? That is Guru Kripa. Srila Prabhupada defines Guru Kripa or Guru Prasad in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, 19th chapter, verse 152 purport. Srila Prabhupada says, the training which a disciple receives from the spiritual master is actually Guru Kripa or Guru Prasad. So, Srila Prabhupada gives a very clear definition of what is Guru Kripa. There's no sentimental understanding in that. So therefore, that is Guru Kripa. And training means giving instructions. Some instructions could be palatable, some instructions may not be palatable. But then in all situations, perceiving that as the Lord's mercy, that is the greatest challenge. So when it is physical difficulties to the body, it becomes more easy to perceive it as the Lord's mercy. Just to give a personal example, recently I was infected by COVID and I got a leg fracture because I hit my leg to a table. Whom to blame? COVID, you can hardly see it. And what about the table? So yes, okay, that's Krishna's mercy. Easy to accept. Adi-Devic miseries, tsunamis, floods, earthquakes, more easy to see. Who's in control? Okay, Krishna's mercy. But then, especially in our own personal experience and from what we heard from others, other devotees, when it comes to difficulties, miseries on the mental platform, that becomes very difficult to accept as the Lord's mercy. And especially when it comes from those around us. And one thinks, why? Why did this person behave like this? Why did this person say this? The mind gets disturbed, and mental disturbances, they tend to prevail in the mind for a very long time, and one tends to blame people, persons for that, and to see that as Krishna's mercy becomes a great challenge. Yet, what can happen without the Lord's sanction? As the well-known saying, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Lord. So, in all situations, then what should be the right response? We would like to, so we are going to the next point. What should be the right response when we see so many instances happening and we may theoretically understand that it's Krishna's mercy, but then to actually philosophically understand and to put it into practice, we would like to hear from Srila Prabhupada directly. You ready? Okay. So kindly open the purport to 8th canto, 3rd chapter, verse number 32. You have the mic? Okay. Kindly read the purport.
The king of the elephants was so very eager to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead that when he saw the Lord coming in the sky, with great pain and in a feeble voice, he offered respect to the Lord. A devotee does not consider a dangerous position to be dangerous. For in such a dangerous position, he can fervently pray to the Lord in great ecstasy. Thus, a devotee regards danger as a good opportunity. Tattenu kampam susamikshamanaha. When a devotee is in great danger, he sees that danger to be the great mercy of the Lord, because it is an opportunity to think of the Lord very sincerely and with undiverted attention. Tattenu kampam susamikshamano bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam. He does not accuse the Supreme Personality of Godhead for having let his devotee fall into such a dangerous condition. Rather, he considers that dangerous condition to be due to his past misdeeds and takes it as an opportunity to pray to the Lord and offer thanks for having been given such an opportunity. When a devotee lives in this way, his salvation, his going back home, back to Godhead, is guaranteed. We can see this to be true from the example of Gajendra, who anxiously prayed to the Lord and thus received an immediate chance to return home back to Godhead.
Thank you. So, as Prabhupada is mentioning, so in these situations, a devotee considers the distressful situation as an opportunity. As the English saying goes, opportunity knocks on the door only once. So, when one is put into such a situation, one can see it as an opportunity for one to more fervently take shelter of the Lord. And we all have that experience when everything is going smoothly, then okay, Hare Krishna goes on. But when there is a danger, when there is a calamity, then there is intense chanting, intensely taking shelter, because one knows that the end could be at any moment. So therefore, seeing it as an opportunity for taking greater shelter, therefore, a devotee, Ridvag Vapubir Vidadan Namaste, rather than accusing the Lord, he thanks the Lord. Thank you, my Lord, you have given me such a wonderful opportunity to fervently think of you, to fervently remember you. Of course, easy to say, but the fact still remains. And in the commenting on this verse, in the 10th chapter of the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada writes, after quoting this verse, Prabhupada says, this statement of the Srimad Bhagavatam should be the guide of all devotees. Prabhupada doesn't say can be, maybe. Prabhupada says should be. That means it's something which is imperative, that we see these situations as the Lord's mercy. And a few days back, Antudit Prabhu was quoting in his class, Vayasaki Prabhu saying that if in his survey, he found that if devotees of our movement, if they simply lived by this verse, then you quoted some percentage. 90% of those who left would not have left. So, therefore, very important to try and understand the philosophy, and as we keep on hearing, then we can try to live by that philosophy. And then, as Srila Prabhupada further goes on to explain, that no one can expect immediate relief from the reactions of one's past misdeeds. So, it takes some time. In that, continuing further, actually, Srila Prabhupada explains practically, as long as one is in this material world, there is going to be suffering in different ways. One cannot escape it. Srila Prabhupada gives the example that just like the waves of the ocean, who can stop? Nobody can stop. And so as long as one is in the material world, one has to face it. Whoever one may be, wherever one may be. Sometimes people think we will change the situation and then maybe we can escape. But what to speak of different places on this earth planet, even if one changes the planets within the material world, it's still going to be the same. Abrahma bhuna loka punaravatana. So where can one escape? Therefore, it's futile to try and change situations, to try and change circumstances. But what we can actually change is one's own consciousness in response to the provoking situations. Most of us have heard this philosophy many times. We're not speaking anything new. Yet, we fail sometimes in showing that right response to the provoking situations. Why is it so? Srila Prabhupada explains that one of the main reasons is one gets covered by the lower modes of Rajagun and Tamagun. Srila Prabhupada gives the example that is just like a person who is wearing yellow-colored glasses. So when the person is wearing yellow-colored glasses, everything appears yellow to him. So if you tell the person, no, this is not yellow, this is brown. He says, you're crazy, you can't see it's yellow. He's never going to be convinced that he is seeing something wrong. he's perceiving things in a wrong way. Unless he has faith in the person who's showing the reality, he will never understand. Prabhupada calls it stubborn obstinacy. Kalia, he was seeing the Lord right in front of his eyes. The Lord was dancing on his heads. The demigods were showering flowers, very happy to see the dance. But for Kalia, it was like thunderbolts. And even though every step the Lord put on his hoods, it was like thunderbolt, but he was still thinking, let me try to kill Krishna. Let me try to adjust the situation. And he was trying and trying. The Lord kept on dancing till finally all the poison came out, and then finally he started vomiting blood. And then when he got purified by the grace of the Nagapatnis, he could recognize. Jambavan in the Shamantak jewel pastime. In Treta Yuga, he had helped the Supreme Lord. That same Supreme Lord is in the form of Krishna. He could not recognize. Why Kalia could not recognize? Because of envy. Why Jambavan could not recognize? Because of material attachments. Attachment to the Shamantak jewel and his son who was playing with the Shamantak jewel. So because of that material attachment, he could not recognize the master. The Lord again pounded him for 28 days. And then, when his body was aching and he was purified, then he recognized. Of course, as far as we conditioned souls are concerned, the Lord is doing the same thing through material nature, pounding us. Since how many days? 28 days? No. Time immemorial, the Lord is doing that. But then, the mercy is what helps us. The mercy of the Vaishnavas is what helps us to recognize. So just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur tells the story of the boy who had a boil, and the father forcibly took him to the surgeon so that he could operate the boil. And as the doctor began the surgery, the boy started screaming, "What cruel doctor are you? You're harming me. You're cutting my body. I'll call the police." He could not recognize that the doctor was actually helping him, curing him of his disease. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also tells the story of two boys named Lalu and Kalu. His father appointed a mathematics teacher. After so many teachers failed, one took the guts and said, "I will teach them." And one day the teacher told Lalu, "See that cow? How many legs the cow has?" So Lalu began counting. 1, 2. Kalu said, "Stop it. Don't you understand? This teacher is trying to teach you mathematics. What to do? No desire to learn. Then who can help? Stubborn obstinacy." And so therefore, when one cannot see the connection of the situation, of the person with the Supreme Lord, because of the covering of ignorance due to the lower modes, one cannot recognize the Lord's mercy. And therefore, one fails to have the right response in these different situations. How one could misuse this philosophy? Application of philosophy is always for oneself, including this verse that Srila Prabhupada quotes practically 2 times, Tatyanukampam, in this purport. So when instructions are given, it's for me. Philosophy, practice of philosophy is for me. Practice of sadhana is for me. Reading Srila Prabhupada's books is for me. If I don't do it, who loses? I. Nobody else. We are not doing a favor to anyone else. We are not doing a favor to Srila Prabhupada, by reading his books. Definitely he'll be happy. But it's ultimately a favor to myself. So, how one could misuse this philosophy? A devotee is not hard-hearted. A devotee has emotions. Here we find Kamalakanta Vishwas. He was unhappy that he was banished. Mukunda, he was unhappy. Chota Haridas, he was very unhappy. Kala Krishna Das, he was very unhappy. Why? Why do these great devotees become unhappy? Is it because they have been chastised and the ego has been hurt? As far as these great devotees are concerned, they are unhappy because they are losing the Lord's association. They have displeased the Lord. So it's not that when one is chastised or something like that, one thinks, it's okay, Lord's mercy. So one is getting chastised, and one simply laughs. No, one has to feel unhappy that one has displeased a Vaishnav. One has not done the service properly. That's the first point of misuse. Second point of misuse, this is Kamsa's philosophy. When he saw Durga Devi, he fell down at the feet of Vasudeva and Devaki and said, what to do? This is all karma. I'm simply an instrument of karma and I killed all your sons. Who asked him to become instrument? That's the second misuse of the philosophy. Trying to apply the philosophy on somebody else and saying that I am instrument of your karma. So I chastise you, I beat you, I do all things. I'm the instrument. That's the second misuse. Third misuse. One could become hard-hearted by this philosophy, saying ultimately everything is Lord's mercy. So many people are dying now due to COVID. What to do? Lord's mercy. Devotees are suffering. What to do? No. When Srila Prabhupada, he saw that those children were struggling for foods in Mayapur, he shed tears. Why? He could see the connection of those living entities with the Supreme Lord. Therefore, he shed tears. So a devotee is not hard-hearted. A devotee has spiritual emotion, seeing that spiritual connection. That's the third misuse. Just like when Mukunda was banished, when Kala Krishnadas was banished, when Chota Haridas was banished, the other devotees didn't think, oh, that's between you and the Lord, that's your karma, why should we interfere? No! The devotees were so concerned and they were pleading with the Lord, my dear Lord, please take them. That's the example that we have. And the fourth misuse is, after all, everything is going to happen by the Lord's mercy, so why should I do anything? So it can lead to complacency and laziness. So these are 4 points of misuse of the philosophy. What is the solution? How to have that right perception towards the mercy? As we said in the case of Kalia, it was the prayers of the Nagapatnis. So it's only when the Vaishnavas give us that proper vision, and when we are put in distressful condition, trying situations, we may be distressed due to so many things, as we were saying, especially we're disturbed because somebody insulted us, somebody passed rules and regulations which we don't like, or so many things that could happen. And we are disturbed. And when we are disturbed and we are affected by the lower modes of Rajagun and Tamagun, we get covered over. And when we get covered over by ignorance, then we don't show the right response. Then we tend to blame, we tend to backbite, protest, gossip, all that happens. The wrong responses take place because our vision is covered. And therefore, on the path of devotional service, very important to always be under the guidance of Vaishnavas. And when we are put in such situations, take the guidance of one who is not so covered. Srila Prabhupada writes, in the purport to 7th canto, 7th chapter, verse number 17 purport, Prabhupada writes, unless one is expert, one cannot understand the expert management of the supreme experts. You've already displayed it? No, I wanted to ask every devotees present. Prabhupada says, unless one is expert, what do you think is the expertise? Don't look over there. What is the expertise that Prabhupada is speaking about? Is it expertise in playing mridang? Is it expertise in deity worship, book distribution? What is the expertise? Satya Prabhu, you're raising your hand. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Association of Devotees, quite close. Somebody would like, anybody, one more chance? Yes? Shastra Chaksha. One who's following expert. That's good. That's good. That's very close. Read the last paragraph of the purport.
The words Vaisharadi Dhi refer to intelligence concerning the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is extremely expert. The Lord has created wonderful universes by his expert knowledge. Unless one is extremely expert, he cannot understand the expert management of the Supreme Expert. One can understand, however, if one is fortunate enough to meet a bona fide spiritual master coming in the disciplic succession from Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Mother Lakshmi, or the Kumaras. These four sampradayas or disciplic successions of knowledge and transcendence are called the Brahma Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, Shri Sampradaya, and Kumar Sampradaya. Sampradaya vihina ye mantras te nishphala mataha. The knowledge of the Supreme received from such a sampradaya or disciplic succession can give one enlightenment.
Yes. So that's the expertise. The expertise is to receive knowledge in parampara. So very fortunate that we are in parampara, the Brahma Madhya Gaudiya Sampradaya, and we have a wonderful realized Acharya like Srila Prabhupada, who has given his realizations, his instructions within his books. And by following that disciplic succession, that is how one can get enlightened and be in the proper, have the right perception in all these situations. It's easy, of course, to see Srila Prabhupada and so many senior disciples of Srila Prabhupada in connection with the parampara. But the principle of parampara is that every devotee down the line has the same potency if he is a transparent via media. And so therefore, we also have to understand that something which becomes difficult to understand is that even our immediate authorities, they are also in parampara. And the instructions they are also giving are in parampara. To the degree we have faith, to that degree we get the benefits. When Prabhupada was asked, are you perfect? Prabhupada said, I'm not perfect, but the message is perfect. And so therefore, when we have faith that yes, these devotees around me, they are in parampara, whoever it may be, and if they are following their superiors, then it's the perfect message in disciplic succession. And in that same purport, Prabhupada quotes twice, if I'm not mistaken, Yasya deve parabhakti yatha deve tadagro tasya katita artha prakashante mahatmana. Then everything will be revealed by the mercy of the Lord. And then, even though one may not be learned like the South Indian Brahmin, everything becomes revealed by the grace of the Lord. But then we have to act in ways to please the spiritual master, to please the Acharya, to attract that grace. And then by that grace, everything will be revealed. And then whatever be the situation, physically, mentally, spiritually, at all times one will be able to see that in the right perspective. That is the meaning of Susumikshamanaha. Su stands for Sushtu. Iksha means to see in the right perspective, to see with a clear perception that whatever is happening, the Lord is most merciful. He is my loving Father, whether He embraces me or slaps me. As Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, it is all the Lord's mercy. The only problem is with our perception. I would like to end with 2 quotes of Srila Prabhupada. This is Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, 12th chapter, verse number 37. Devotees should always be happy with all dealings of the Master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A devotee may be put into difficulty or opulence, but he should accept both as gifts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and jubilantly, that's the difficult part, and jubilantly engage in the service of the Lord in all circumstances. Next verse purport. A devotee should always be happy to receive the fortune awarded to him by the Supreme Lord, which seems pleasant or unpleasant according to one's judgments. So therefore, in order to have the right judgments, one should get expert guidance from the expert acharya and the expert devotees coming in the expert sampradaya, and then our life would be expert and perfect. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Samved Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Do we have time for questions? I've received one question here. Why should we not see suffering as suffering? Ultimately, according to Srila Prabhupada's purports, the goal of human form of life is to become free from threefold miseries and the 4 problems of life and to go back to Godhead. Also, in one Bhagavad Gita purport, Srila Prabhupada says that one should have a pessimistic view of the problems of life. Please clarify. Yes, so we are not saying that one should not see problems as problems, but then problems are always going to be there, the miseries are always going to be there. That's never going to change. But then what can be changed is my own perception towards them. So if that perception is changed, then rather than getting into a blame game or getting into some other unnecessary and negative ways of dealing with it, one can deal with the situation in a positive way. So yes, therefore, understanding that this material world is a miserable place, definitely one should aim for getting out of the material world to go back home, back to Godhead. But in order for that to happen, while I'm here in this material world, I need to create the right consciousness. It is the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, means to see the hand of Krishna in everything that's happening. So when one cultivates the right consciousness, then Krishna is pleased with that, and then one becomes eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. So yes, we can have a pessimistic view towards the miseries, but then seeing that, seeing the purpose behind them, seeing the Lord's hand behind them, what does the Lord want to teach me through this? When I understand that and cultivate that consciousness, then, as the verse says, one becomes eligible to go back. Prabhuji, would you like to add something?
One question. Sundar Shambhu. Sundar Shambhu is asking, what else could we do for devotees currently suffering from COVID apart from praying?
Okay, what else can we do? It depends on one's own circumstances, situation, capacity. So, as we know, some temples last year and even this year distributing prasadam and helping in different ways. So, at least, yes, we can offer prayers and words of sympathy and encouragement to those who are suffering. At least, so whatever one is capable, whatever is possible within one's capacity, one can try. That could be different for different people. You can say that.
Prabhu, you said that to see mental disturbance as Krishna mercy is a great challenge. And in the purport of 5.10.14 it is written that one who goes on suffering the reaction of his past misdeeds offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart. So when we have a mental disturbance, strongly provoking mental disturbance, in that situation, how to offer respectful obeisances from the core of heart?
It's definitely difficult. And therefore, in order to be in that proper consciousness, the guidance is required. So therefore, when we are in the association of devotees, we need to hear from them. In that same purport of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, 19th chapter, verse 152, Prabhupada gives a definition of what does it mean to live in the temple and to live with devotees. That's the first line of the purport. Prabhupada says, to live in the temple or to live with devotees means to submit to the process of Shravanam and Kirtanam. So that is what we are supposed to do. So if we are living with devotees, we need to hear from them. And so when we hear from them, we take guidance from them, then we can have that proper perception. Then we can have the right consciousness. And then we could offer prayers, thanking the Lord. All right? Okay. Thank you all very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samved Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Actually, all these devotees know me because I had given classes for them. So, yes. So already it's late anyways. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Already it was done. So thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.